Donald Trump's police state expands. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about this. So, earlier today, there was news coming out of several outlets, and I will read you some of what was. The topic was that a local judge had been arrested by the FBI. Kash Patel posted this on X and then deleted it because I think there was something in that was improper or something that violated some law, or I can't put my finger on what that is at the moment. But the bigger story is that this judge in Milwaukee County was arrested by the FBI. And here Kyle Cheney reports, Kash Patel says FBI has arrested Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan and charged her with obstructing an immigration operation. It's the first known instance in Trump's second term of DOJ prosecuting a local official who allegedly interfering with immigration enforcement. New York Times says, Patel said the agents arrested a Wisconsin county judge and accused her of obstructing immigration enforcement, a major escalation in the Trump administration's battle with local authorities over deportations. So that's the news. Right? We don't know what the facts are. We don't know what they are claiming was obstruction. The little facts that have come out is that there was a man who was at Judge Dugan's court who was there for a different case. And evidently there were people who were outside the courthouse, presumptively main entrance, where they were waiting for this person. The ICE agents were waiting for this person to, detain them without a warrant right outside of the judge's doors. So that I don't know if the judge was aware of this or not. And then the judge allowed him to go out another door that was present in the courtroom, another exit. So the question is what the judge did, if anything, to obstruct. Like, we'll see the facts coming out, and the judge, I hope, is going to vigorously defend her position. Now, Pam Bondi, who, by the way, should just have been a spokesperson for the DOJ or something like that, because I don't remember Merrick Garland or even James Comey, except for his, 2 weeks before the election bungle or intentional writing of the fact that, Clinton did nothing wrong. The whole time that Comey was FBI director, you didn't hear them get on Fox News every other day. Pam Bondi's on Fox more than she is at the Justice Department. And she says, what has happened to our judiciary is beyond me. They are deranged. They're sending a very strong message today. We are sending a very strong message today. We will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you. First of all, it is a threat to state judges. I would like to remind you that federal judges cannot be convicted of a crime. Their way of removing them from office, well, if they commit a crime, and if you have evidence of them commit a crime, I suppose that you can bring it up as a sort of a pretext for impeachment. But the way that you get a federal judge out of office is to impeach and then remove. So, you can't arrest. So this is about state judges. If they start arresting federal judges, there will be a big problem by the judiciary and the Supreme Court. And I don't think that's where Donald will ever go. So, Rep. Raskin says, so on the logic of his arrest of Judge Dugan, all of the people in the Trump administration who participated in defying that order by Judge Boasberg themselves could be arrested for interfering with the legal proceeding and perhaps other criminal charges like kidnapping. So essentially saying the people who were defying the orders of Judge Boasberg, and I would say Judge Sinis, and evading Judge Sinis's discovery orders, and essentially stonewalling the courts by appealing orders to the Fourth Circuit. You could call all of that obstruction as well, if you are going to call what Judge Dugan did obstruction. That's a legal argument that Representative Raskin made, and I think that's, it's important to point out the double standard that Donald Trump's administration is taking. And we'll see later on today, because I'm going to report in sort of a haphazard way how Donald Trump is scapegoating. And it is clear that Donald Trump directs everything in his administration because he has consolidated power in loyalists who will do anything he says. And he has consolidated power by undermining the stability of departments and that would have to rely wholly on his judgment, his decision making, or it would crumble, and creating this autocratic authoritarian regime, this reign that I've been saying for months and months and months, and now big newspapers and experts are calling it that. So I'm happy for them. So here we see such an expansion of the police state going after an elected official of a state on obstruction charges of how she conducts the affairs of her courtroom. And that's not the only sort of overreach. That's an overreach into the judiciary, just blatant overreach into the judiciary, and of a state, and then piercing the veil of the state power that you can go after a state judge based on your ICE documents that presume that somebody in there is removable by the standards of the Alien Enemies Act. That premise itself is shaky, and you're going to go into a courtroom. You wanted to go into a courtroom, and the judge didn't allow you to go into the courtroom, or whatever the facts lay out. You're going to arrest that judge? It is unheard of. It has never happened, but it is just not the only thing that Pam Bondi is doing. Ken Delanian reported on X that Pam Bondi has revoked former Attorney General Merrick Garland's policy designed to shield news media from secret government requests for phone, email, and other records. Now the policy is going to be very different. In a new memo obtained by NBC News, this is what it says. Safeguarding classified, privileged, and other sensitive information is essential to effective governance and law enforcement. Federal government employees intentionally leaking sensitive information to the media undermines the ability of the Department of Justice to uphold the rule of law, protect civil rights, and keep America safe. Saying all this while gutting the Department of Justice and the FBI. This conduct is illegal and wrong, and it must stop. Therefore, I have concluded that it is necessary to rescind Merrick Garland's policies precluding the Department of Justice from seeking records and compelling testimony from members of the news media in order to identify and punish the source of improper leaks. I'm also directing the Office of Legal Policy to publish new regulatory language in the statute, that the rules that would govern this DOJ policy that Pam Bondi now has, where the government can go after the news media and their sources. So essentially going after whistleblowers and the freedom of the press, going after free speech and the truth in the face of massive corruption, and saying, no, the Department of Justice will go after these leaks, and the way we'll do it is by compelling or getting into news media and forcing them to give us the information of what their sources are. Like, how's the news media going to get their information if they don't have unnamed sources, or if they don't get, tips from different people? That's how the press works. It's kind of like if you think about Jeff Goldberg. He got the scoop of the century with the signal chat thing. But news comes out unofficially, and then through sources that are credible, and then you corroborate those sources, then you write an article that's exclusive, then that is corroborated by other your peer journals, your peer newspapers, to see the verity of it, and then that story explodes and becomes public. And Donald Trump's administration just wants to, I called it administration. Donald Trump's regime wants to get in the middle of it. They want to stop journalists from reporting the truth. They want to stop whistleblowers from speaking the truth. And this is unprecedented expansion of executive power that we haven't seen in our lifetime. I don't think we have seen in the last century. Moving on, and I'm sure I'll come back to this topic again, but there are a few stories that I want to say. AP breaking news: federal government is reversing the termination of legal status for international students after many filed court challenges, a government lawyer says. So, in Donald Trump's universe and in Pam Bondi's regulatory language of DOJ policy, that government source, AP would be compelled to just divulge who that is, and they would go after that whistleblower and prosecute them. That is what the law, that is what DOJ policy is. Whether that is legal or illegal is a completely different story, because, again, the executive branch does not write laws. When there's an OLC opinion and you wonder why it's given so much credence, it's because it is part of the enforcement branch, which can take some leeway in saying how they will conduct their legal affairs. But this is an encroachment into the First Amendment. This is an encroachment into the courts of state courts. This is an encroachment into state power, and on the basis of a wobbly Alien Enemies Act premise. So every day there are new stories about people who get illegally removed. So we're going to move on to the new thing, talking about people illegally removed from the United States. And, more and more people and more stories are coming out. It is hard to keep track of, and I'll give you a few stories in a minute, but we must keep track of this as much as we can. It is important to learn about this. this history is being made now and not in a good way. We have to remember it, register it, and see, keep a watch for revisionists who will inevitably try to rewrite the history after it has happened. So that's why it's important to keep track of what's going on. Because, even now, people are constantly trying to erase the history of what happened on January 6th. So I would like to quite, explicitly remind you that on January 6th, Donald Trump incited an insurrection and hurled it towards Congress and stopped the certification of the presidential votes in Congress for more than 7 hours. He sat, and for 3 of those 7 hours, he sat in front of the TV in his dining room watching his supporters do what he had told him to, without any regard to people pleading to him that he please tell his supporters to stop the violence. And he was indicted for it, and unfortunately, because he wasn't indicted and prosecuted properly and in a timely manner, he got out of accountability. That is what happened on January 6th, and nothing should or ever change that. So I'll go back to the news about what these arrests of expansion of the executive branch and this revisionism happening. It's too much almost to keep track of. And so you go through the news and you'll see that even the best of scholars will be scatterbrained when we talk about, well, I'm not a scholar, I'm just a student. When scholars talk about everything that is happening, it is kind of interconnected, and that's why we should keep it all together, as haphazard as it may seem. So there's news by New York Times, breaking news, saying a federal judge expressed deep concern that the Trump administration deported a 2-year-old U.S. citizen to Honduras without meaningful process. First of all, I don't see what meaningful process would allow somebody who is a natural-born citizen of the United States to be removed from the United States, except for serious custodial considerations where they are this is force of habit, where they are illegally removing people from the United States who have been resident of the United States, paid taxes in the United States, been subject to the laws of the United States, and sending them back to the country they were born, and with them, their American children. Don't forget about the time that the 10-year-old cancer patient who was an American citizen was also illegally removed and sent to Mexico right as she was going for her emergency brain cancer treatment. So, what's left here? We have a 10-year-old cancer patient being American citizen being deported to Mexico on the basis of their parents' legality to be in the country, despite the fact that they were under the jurisdiction of the United States, despite the fact that they have paid taxes, without giving them any meaningful hearing or due process about any clemency and in staying in the United States, at least until their child's treatment was concluded. No, there was no such consideration. I'm sure there's same custodial considerations when we hear more about this 2-year-old, because I'm just reading about this news. What do we have left? We have legal residents, we have undocumented people, we have visa holders, we have asylum seekers, we have refugees who have been here on protective custody, in protective status like Abrego Garcia. We have asylum seekers like Andrew Romero. We have green card holders like Mahmoud Khalil. We have students like Miss Oster with student visas. We have citizens who are being sent back because they're saying deporting without any due process, therefore illegally removing these people from our country despite them being residents of the United States without affording them due process of law. And now, there was talk about that lawyer Micharoni, who received a letter from ICE about her deportation despite the fact that she was American born. Now we have the arrest of a judge. So what is left in expanding the police state? Going after everyday citizens if they speak up. If they do anything that the government doesn't like. Going after journalists. And if the government legally doesn't go after them, there's always Donald Trump's Proud Boys, MAGA, Oath Keepers, ragtag team of militias who will go out and intimidate. And I'm sure Donald Trump will have dog whistles for that and use it. So these are not deportations. Deportations get processed. These are illegal removals and extrajudicial overreach that undermines the law, which is the purview of Congress, and those who say what the law is, which is the purview of the courts. And all of this is premised on the Alien Enemies Act, the applicability of which is in question. We haven't even reached to the merits of whether this act applies, because it can only be invoked at a time of war, and we are not at war. War is a necessary precondition for the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. So if you just push up the whole Tren de Aragua narrative, bring it to court with evidence. And we haven't even got to that point yet. Because they're forgetting about giving these people process and proving their claims and support of Alien Enemies Act and in support of their arrests, and do the arrests lawfully. They're instead going out and being the judge, jury, and executioner for people ranging from undocumented people who have been here for decades to American citizens who are connected to these undocumented people, and to other people who are here legally, visa holders, green card holders, and so on. So, our country is pushing away people and causing trauma, unnecessary trauma, alienating our allies and people who would come to the United States. Tourism is dropping like an anchor. I'm sure international students will also find other places, say for example like Cambridge in the United Kingdom, and other amazing universities all around the world. And our academic, educational, research competitiveness will suffer for it. So before I end, I would like to go and point out two things that I found to be instructive in Time Magazine's interview with Donald Trump. So in the first one, it says, if people want to, we want to make deals. But I'm a giant store, and a giant beautiful store, and everybody wants to go to the shopping there, And on behalf of the American people, I own the store, and I set prices, and I'll say, if you want to shop here, this is what you have to pay. Well, sir, when you are doing something on behalf of the American people, you are not the owner of what you are doing. The store belongs to the American people. As absurd as this sort of, people are going to make fun of this big, giant, beautiful store. And, people will look away from the scary part where it says, on behalf of the American people, I own the store. No. On behalf of the American people, you are a steward of this store. You are the manager, the general manager. You aren't the owner. The people own the store. And you worked for us. You set the prices because Congress tells you to set the prices, not on your own. You don't go out and enforce something just by executive order because, again, an executive order is not law. It's an executive department policy. And we see that come out and play out more because the executive is the only branch of the government that has the executive power. So enforcement is easy for them of their policies. Doesn't make it law, doesn't make it legal. The next one, blurb that I sort of heard, and then Donald Trump corrected himself later on, and you'll see when I read it. I leave that to my lawyers. I give them no instructions. They feel that the order said something very different from what you're saying. But I leave that to my lawyers. If they want, and that would be the Attorney General of the United States and the people that represent the country. I don't make that decision. So did you see where he caught himself? I leave that to my lawyers. My lawyers. Said that once. Lied about the fact that he doesn't give them instructions, despite the fact that, like I said, he has consolidated it so much that they're lapdogs. But I leave that to my lawyers, if they want. And then he realizes mid-speech that he's saying my lawyers. So he says that would be the Attorney General and the people that represent the country. So it slipped out that Donald Trump considers his lawyers to be the Attorney General of the United States, but then sort of adds at the end of it, after sort of processing in his head during saying what he was saying, that I'd better say, and the people who represent the country. So that gives you a window inside Donald Trump and what he's thinking. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for hanging out with me for so long. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon, however haphazardly.